This is hell.
Welcome to Screen Recaps, and today we are going to be recapping the movie Predators. In the middle of the sky, an unconscious man is falling at a very fast speed. His name is Royce, and he wakes up just in time to open his parachute right before he falls through the trees of a thick jungle and hits the ground, which knocks him out. Seconds later, he wakes up again to discover he doesn't know where he is or how he got there, but at least he still has his mercenary weapons and clothes. At that moment, another man falls next to him. Cuchillo, who is part of a Mexican cartel, aims his weapons at Royce, but before they can react, a third man falls between them. His parachute didn't open, so he died on impact. Suddenly, someone opens fire on them, and Royce moves quickly to dodge the bullets and appear behind the shooter. Nikolai is a Russian commando, and the last thing he remembers as being at war. Royce and Cuchillo had the same experience. They were going through their days when a light shined and knocked them out. Then they appeared in the sky. When they turn around, they find Isabel, a sniper from the Israel Defense Forces, aiming her weapon at them. She shares that she's been on many journeys, but this one feels unfamiliar. She also mentions witnessing more people descending. They decide to stick together and search for the others, unaware that nearby a member of the Akaza group named Hanso is observing them. He attempts to follow, but opts to remove his shoes when he encounters the muddy terrain. The group ventures deeper into the jungle and encounters two men in the midst of a scuffle. One is a death row inmate, and the other is a rebel from a South African organization based in Mombasa. Their fight ceases upon spotting the newcomers, and they agree to join forces, recognizing the strength in their numbers. Stan then points out a man stuck in a tree. It's Dr. Edwin, whose parachute got entangled in a branch. Royce frees him by shooting the branch, causing him to fall into a nearby lake. Like the rest, Edwin is clueless about their situation and how they ended up there. As the group continues their journey, Isabel has to endure Stan's inappropriate comments. Eventually, they find Hanso in a state of stillness, not stuck but motionless, as he has discovered a peculiar totem adorned with numerous bones beneath it. Mombasa suggests that some hunter might be collecting trophies, a practice highly respected in his culture, where the warrior with the best trophies garners the most respect. Nikolai speculates that this might be some sort of test, but Isabel disagrees since not everyone in the group has a military background. Cuchillo thinks it could be a ransom. Stan proposes that it's an experiment, and suddenly, they begin to wonder if they're in the afterlife, possibly in a form of hell. Royce intervenes, emphasizing that the reason doesn't matter, what they need is to find a way to escape. The group follows Royce, and as they traverse the jungle, Nikolai is tempted to touch a beautiful flower. However, Edwin prevents him, explaining that it's poisonous and would lead to paralysis. Nikolai appreciates the warning and promises to protect Edwin in return. After making more progress, Isabel asks Royce to slow down and shows him something. She creates an improvised compass and places it on the water, but it keeps spinning in circles. In response, Royce points out that the sun hasn't moved since their arrival, indicating that navigation will be challenging. He also suggests that given their diverse combat skills and the presence of a doctor, they may have been carefully selected for a specific purpose. Isabel guesses that Royce might have been a soldier before becoming a mercenary, but he declines to provide more details. Continuing their journey, the group comes across a cage, carefully removing the covering sheet, only to find it empty. It appears the cage was dropped in a similar manner to their arrival, and the presence of bloodstains suggests that some creature had been inside it. When they look up, they notice numerous fallen cages entangled in the trees, indicating they won't be alone in this situation. The group continues their journey, and suddenly Mombasa stumbles on a branch, inadvertently triggering a trap. Soon, a series of hazards are set in motion, including a massive swinging tree trunk, falling wooden stakes, and even a large bear trap. Remarkably, they manage to evade all of these dangers. Isabel, however, runs and falls into a hole, gripping the edge to survive. Royce rushes to her aid, rescuing her just in the nick of time. Isabel employs the scope on her weapon to search for the person responsible for the traps, only to discover that he's already deceased. Edwin estimates that the individual has been dead for approximately 2 weeks, and Nikolai checks the pockets to find evidence that he was once a member of the USA Special Forces. Royce realizes that the traps weren't intended for them, but were set to capture or kill whatever had taken the life of the deceased soldier, which he believes must be much larger than their group due to the trap's placement. As they resume their journey, Mombasa senses something lurking among the trees but chooses to disregard it. Unbeknownst to them, someone is observing them through infrared technology, repeating their words. Shortly after, they reach the edge of the jungle and gaze up at the sky, only to be met with a startling sight. A collection of bizarre planets and stars indicates that they are not on Earth. Royce decides that they must find the ones responsible for their predicament and requests to be sent back home. The group re-enters the jungle, and suddenly a drone swiftly hovers near them, alarming Stan due to his lack of weapons. He vents his frustration and threatens Mombasa for a weapon. However, before they can engage in another dispute, they hear growling emanating from the jungle. In that moment, a fearsome creature emerges, sprinting toward them, and the group immediately opens fire. They manage to swiftly dispatch the creature, but more of its kind begin to approach. Since they are unarmed, Edwin and Stan start running away. One of the monsters targets Edwin as he stumbles, but Isabel eliminates it with a precise shot. Meanwhile, Nikolai and Hanso use their firearms to take down another beast, while Royce employs only his knife to slay one. Stan finds himself grappling with a monster as well, doing his best to defend himself with a knife. Fortunately, Mombasa arrives and dispatches the creature with a few well-aimed shots. Edwin climbs a tree while Isabel finds herself cornered by another beast, contemplating desperate measures. However, at that moment, a distant whistle resonates deep within the jungle, prompting all the creatures to abruptly flee. The group reunites and arrives at a simple conclusion: they are being hunted. The creatures they encountered were hunting dogs, assessing the enemy, and the whistle served as a recall signal. The planet they find themselves on is essentially a massive hunting ground, and those trapped in the cage are the prey. Suddenly, Mombasa notices that someone is missing, and they hear Cucchio's voice pleading for help among the trees. The group follows the sound and discovers Cucchio on his knees, severely injured. Isabel attempts to approach him to offer assistance, but Royce intervenes, suspecting it's a trap. He proves his point by throwing a stone, and Stan emphasizes that there's nothing they can do for Cucchio. Ignoring Isabel's protests, they continue on their way. Isabel decides to end Cucchio's suffering and shoots him, but to her horror, she hears his cries for help again. As it turns out, Cucchio had been deceased all along, and the voice was merely a recording used by the hunter who is now observing them. The group continues their journey, and Royce examines the limited clues to speculate on the enemy's behavior. He deduces that the hunter wants them to run, so Royce suggests they follow the tracks left by the hunting dogs to reach the hunter first. Shortly after, they stumble upon a camp, greeted by a disturbing sight. The camp is adorned with the bodies of various races impaled on stakes, and the ground is littered with the remains of different creatures, confirming that not only humans are brought to this planet as prey. Towards the rear of the camp, they are taken aback by the sight of a colossal and grotesque creature tethered to a stake, referred to as a predator. While Royce notices Isabel's peculiar reaction to it, Nikolai cautiously approaches the alien and prods it with his weapon, only to have the creature respond with a deafening roar because it is still very much alive. Isabel insists that they should leave immediately, but Edwin observes that Royce has disappeared. Suddenly, a barrage of spears emerges, claiming Mombasa's life, and Royce emerges from the shadows, opening fire wildly. The others join him, and the overwhelming volley of bullets reveals that the hunter is a predator employing a cloaking device. They adapt the plan and use Edwin as bait, having him sprint through the jungle to lure the enemy into pursuit. Isabel employs her sniper skills to eliminate the hunter. When they approach the body, they discover it isn't a predator, but another victim from the cages. However, this isn't the creature she shot because her shot missed and struck a tree instead. Suddenly they hear a voice, and someone with a cloaking device materializes behind Royce. The hunter removes his mask, revealing himself as another human named Noland. He advises them to lower their volume to avoid detection by the hunters. Noland has been aware of the group's presence since their arrival, and, noting an approaching storm, he guides them to his hideout, which happens to be an old, dilapidated ship. Noland, a former military member, arrived on this planet in a box 10 seasons ago, becoming the sole survivor from that batch. His prolonged isolation has clearly taken a toll on him as he occasionally converses with an imaginary companion. Oland also knows a few things about the predator since he's killed 2 or 3. It's important to hide humans' heat signature not to be detected. It also seems that big predators and small predators don't get along, which explains the one they saw tied up. Every season, new victims are brought over, and 3 predators would come with new technology and tactics to hunt, because they are constantly evolving. Royce realizes that if predators keep coming back each season, then they must have a ship around. But Nolan points out they wouldn't be able to pilot it. Afterward, Roland goes to bed, and the group chats for a while. Nikolai shows Edwin a picture of his kids, and Stan shows them a creepy tattoo he has of his sister. Hanzo finds a samurai sword and compliments it, making Edwin realize he does speak English. He wonders why Hanzo hadn't said a word until now, and Hanzo reveals he's missing fingers because he was punished for saying too much. Isabel shares with Royce her theory that they were chosen because on Earth they were the predators and therefore monsters too. But Royce is obsessed with finding the ship, and he thinks he could convince the captured predator in the camp to fly it because the enemy of the enemy is a friend. Suddenly smoke begins filling the room and they discover Nolan is gone. The door is also blocked, so Edwin thinks Nolan must be trying to kill them to steal all their things. While Nolan is shown outside fanning the fire, Royce blasts a bomb against the wall that sends Nolan running, but doesn't even crack the wall. However, Royce wasn't trying to break it. He made noise on purpose to get the attention of a nearby predator. The plan works, and soon Nolan finds the hallway blocked by a predator who immediately blows up Nolan using lasers. Then the alien hits a panel on the wall to create a small access into the group's room, but it doesn't do anything else, just to toy with them. Royce carefully comes closer and puts his gun into the hole to shoot a flare, confirming the predator is nowhere to be seen. The group finishes pushing the panel off and finally escapes. Now they must find their way out through some very dark corridors. On their way out, Edwin accidentally ends up separated from the group and begins yelling for help as he lets up another flare, which gets the attention of the predator. Edwin hears a growl in the darkness and runs away until he finally finds the group again. He begs for help, but the group chooses to leave without him. At that moment, the predator appears in front of Edwin, but before it can attack, Nikolai shows up to help. Edwin runs while Nikolai fights the alien, but he doesn't last long. The predator stabs Nikolai and picks him up with its blade, so Nikolai takes the chance to spit on the alien's face before activating a detonator. The resulting explosion kills them both and a shockwave sweeps through the ship, but the group manages to get out just in time. Outside the ship, Stans begins celebrating the fact they killed an alien only to be suddenly knocked down by a predator that is now turning off its invisibility. The beast is about to kill Royce, but Stans jumps on it and starts stabbing the predator while telling the others to run. Furious over losing its prey, the predator throws Stans on the ground and rips out his spine. Then it roars and gets the attention of the third predator, who starts following the tracks left by the running group. At that moment, Hanzo becomes aware that they are being pursued and instructs the others to depart while he remains behind to provide a diversion. Hanzo removes his jacket and draws his katana, just in time to confront the predator, which also draws its blade. A fierce sword fight ensues, and although Hanzo is pushed back by the alien's superior strength on a few occasions, he still manages to inflict a deep gash on its abdomen. After exchanging several more blows, they simultaneously strike each other and both collapse, succumbing to their injuries. Meanwhile, Edwin inadvertently activates a trap and is unable to walk. Royce observes that the trap was designed not to kill but to immobilize the enemy, and Edwin has now become a burden. As Royce suggests the options of leaving Edwin behind or setting a trap, Edwin presents Nikolai's family picture, pretending it's his own children. Isabel refuses to abandon or harm Edwin, prompting Royce to leave on his own. Shortly after, Royce reaches the camp and engages in a conversation with the captured predator. He offers the predator freedom in exchange for departing the planet. When the alien confirms its understanding, Royce severs the chains to release it, and the predator responds by grasping him by the neck. Upon closer examination, the predator releases Royce and retrieves its mask to put it back on, activating its equipment. On its forearm brace, the predator accesses a star map of the universe and selects planet Earth, finalizing the agreement before summoning its spaceship. Meanwhile, Isabel assists Edwin in walking, but they inadvertently trigger a trap and become ensnared in a net. The third predator awaits them and promptly starts dragging them back to the camp, where it tosses the humans into a pit before noticing that its fellow predator is now free. Both predators immediately engage in combat, allowing Royce the opportunity to sprint toward the spaceship. As the spacecraft lifts off, The predators continue their duel, and after a series of exchanges and shots, the pursuing alien overpowers the ship's owner and decapitates it. After celebrating its triumph, the predator destroys the spaceship before it can escape far. In the pit, Isabel expresses no regret for staying to help Edwin. However, Edwin surprises her from behind and attacks her with his scalpel coated in poison. It turns out that Edwin is a psychopathic murderer who feels at home among other monsters and intends to stay on this planet. He's on the verge of harming Isabel when suddenly Royce appears, as he never managed to reach the ship in the end. Royce aids the pair in escaping from the pit, and Isabel wants to inform him about Edwin. However, the paralysis induced by the poison prevents her from speaking. After distancing themselves from the pit, Royce checks on Isabel, and Edwin attempts to take Royce by surprise from behind. Yet Royce reacts swiftly and seizes him by the neck to inflict harm using his own poison. Subsequently, Royce sets up booby traps for Edwin and abandons him for the predator to discover. When the alien approaches and touches Edwin, it triggers a series of grenades that kill the doctor, ignite a fire, and send the predator flying. Once the creature recuperates, it encounters Royce awaiting it. But Royce intensifies the flames and conceals himself among them to disrupt the alien's infrared sensor. Royce then seizes an axe and starts moving swiftly, striking the predator and darting into the flames, repeating the process. After enduring numerous blows, the predator focuses on detecting Royce's heartbeat and shoots at the tree behind which Royce is concealed, injuring him. Subsequently, the alien commences hurling Royce around, but before it can kill him, Isabel drags herself to reach her weapon and opens fire. The predator is wounded but still alive and hurls a dagger back at Isabel's shoulder. Seizing the opportunity, Royce reclaims his axe and delivers repeated blows to the predator. Finally, he concludes the battle by decapitating the alien. Following the encounter, Royce reunites with Isabel, and together they observe more cages falling from the sky. Royce asserts that they must find a means of departure soon.
I thought